Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's Shot Callers Podcast back here with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Bradley Beal and the Wizards. This is probably the second time now that I've talked about them. This is not going to be much. I think the title's probably going to be like, Dear Bradley Beal, please don't leave. Something silly like that. But if you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss a beat. Ladies, gentlemen, and ballers, it is day 11, I believe. Bradley Beal has still not been traded. There's been a lot going on in the media how Beal should be traded, but thankfully it still seems like he still wants to stick through it. That's just kind of the vibes that I get from him. Whether that's true or not, time will tell. But I'm praying that the Wizards aren't dumb enough to trade him. I think if it gets to a certain point, though, the inevitable will happen, and it will just happen. Yeah, let's get right into the video. So, as we all know, the Wizards can't play defense. They're a bottom 3 team in defensive rating. They have no defenders on the team, and you would think at least Isaac Bonner could stick up, but nah, he can't do anything. To fix this team, one, Scott Brooks needs to be fired, and that's just a start. So, at that point, I think if he gets fired, you run the rest of the season with your interim coach. I want to talk about Russell Westbrook because I've been slowly starting to realize at the end of the day, in my last video about the Wizards, because obviously I'm a Wizards fan and you guys know this, I said that Russell Westbrook wasn't the main problem. I said he has his flaws, but he wasn't a huge problem. Now, I'm starting to change that back because I'm not saying that Westbrook is the main problem still, but at the end of the day, when you pay a superstar $40 million, you don't pay them to play that way. So what I'm trying to say is Westbrook has his flaws, but he's also a part of the problem. He's not a big problem or the number one issue, but he's still a part of the problem. And at the end of the day, if you're getting paid $40 million, you should be a plus, not a minus. And with that said, I mean, the efficiency is terrible. He's shooting below 40% from the field, like 30% from three. His turnovers are like a career high, I believe. I have to go check that stat, but it's one of his career, if not his career high. And it's really tough because the Rockets beat us, and Ja had a pretty good game against us. And it's sad to see that we gave up a first-round pick for Westbrook to get rid of Wall. And we're definitely looking like the losers of that trade. I made a wager with Brendan, the person I had on my podcast. It was our first 30-minute just talk. And we will be live streaming Saturday, so tune in. It'll be either, I think, in the afternoon. But we will be live streaming, just talking NBA. But I'll leave that in the comment section. But back to what we were talking about. I did make a wager with Brendan that the Thunder would be worse than the Wizards by the end of the season. And boy, do I look dumb. And Thunder just came off an impressive win against the Phoenix Suns. Shout out to Shea. Shout out to Mike Muscala these past few games. I mean, I remember Brendan was talking bad about him, and he's really picked it up. So shout out to him. He's shooting very well these past few games. But with that said, the Wizards are just a train wreck. The nation's capital is just not very good right now. But what I will say is there's still some things we can do before the trade deadline that could at least get us into playoff contention. Because at the end of the day, we are in the East, so there's still a chance to make the playoffs, and it's still the beginning of the season. Now, I saw a lineup yesterday where we were starting Jordan Bell, who we just picked up in free agency, I think a couple days ago. Yeah, you're just not going to be a playoff team if you're starting Jordan Bell in any situation. I mean, this guy is just not very good. I remember when he played on the Warriors, and the Warriors made him look good, but he went to the Timberwolves, and he was just completely trash. Jerome Robinson has no business starting, and I am aware that we have people out with injury or COVID. Rory didn't play, and who else? I'm forgetting one more person who did not play. But it's hard to win games when you're rolling out lineups with Raul Neto, Ish Smith, and Russell Westbrook, and then we're having to start Jordan Bell and Jerome Robinson. Now, Jerome Robinson, I at least do believe at his peak he could at least just be a serviceable bench role player, but at the end of the day, that's nothing special. You can't be a playoff team no matter what conference you're in if you're having those two start. Adding to the fact that it's horrible management, horrible subbing, and horrible star play by Westbrook, it's literally just a Bradley Beal carry fest. I mean, he dropped 42 points, 2 games ago or something like that, and I'm just thinking to myself wow, this guy needs some help. And it was all over NBA Twitter and Reddit. You could see Bradley Beal visibly frustrated. he had like his head down, his hands over his face. It just was not a good look, and that's how all this drama has definitely picked up. Now, if we were to trade Bradley Beal, I want to get into this discussion. If it does happen, a few teams that I would like to see him get traded to, whether it's realistic or not, I think would be great fits for him. One, I'm going to start out with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I am aware that they just traded for Drew Holiday, so it's not like they are in need. But at the end of the day, in order to win a championship with an elite big man, you need an elite guard. It's just what's happened to NBA history. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a lot harder. And nothing against Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, but I just think Bradley Beal is that player. Chris Middleton has definitely once again shown how good he really is and how slept on he is. But at the end of the day, there's been a lot of times where he just hasn't shown up in playoff games, which have hurt the Bucks. The next team I want to say is the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, this is another team that I'm not sure it may be realistic. I think there is a chance. I've heard some buzz, I should say, around the Clippers potentially trying to acquire Bradley Beal. My take is so at the end of the day, no matter how impressive the Clippers have looked so far, I just truly don't believe that Kawhi and Paul George match up with LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I think everyone knows that at this point. I think at the end of the day, they will fall. But could you imagine if they somehow were to acquire Bradley Beal? I'm not sure if they have the picks. Like I said, I have to go look into that. But let's say like a Luke Kennard, Patrick Beverly, or not even, maybe like a Luke Kennard, Lou Williams, and like a bunch of picks, like a haul of picks. Obviously, they probably don't have that at that point because they traded out to the Thunder to get Paul George. So, like I said, I don't know if that's really that realistic. But I think if the Clippers acquired Bradley Beal with that trio, I'm not sure about the offensive talents of the Nets, but when I think defensively that they already have, I think it'll match the Nets talent-wise. And at the end of the day, I think that would then put them in that tier of the Nets and the Lakers easily. I still think they're in that tier, but I think that they're that worst team next to those two. But I definitely think that would be a very competitive series if they face the Lakers with Bradley Beal. Like I said, I don't know if that's really realistic. It's more of just like a fantasizing over what could possibly happen if Bradley Beal went to like a championship team. So yeah. Now, the last team I want to talk about is the Denver Nuggets. Now, this would all depend if they're willing to trade Michael Porter Jr. And if the Wizards are willing to rebuild around Michael Porter Jr. or if they see that potential in him. I think a package could possibly be a Gary Harris, MPJ, multiple picks type deal. I'm saying that specifically, but something centered around that. I do believe, though, that the Denver Nuggets actually, this could be a realistic destination, as in they have the assets, they have the contracts, and I'm pretty sure they have the picks. So let's see if that could be a realistic option. I do believe that a Bradley Beal, Jamal Murray, and Jokic would be a deadly trio. But I'm not quite sure if that would actually really put them over the hump. Because I think defensively, they're already not good at all, like really at all this year. I think adding Bradley Beal really wouldn't fix any issues. I'm not saying he's like that bad defensively, because I don't think that Beal is as bad defensively as people want to say the Wizards are as a whole. And I at least think that Beal's a capable defender, and he's just playing on just a terrible coached and defensive team. Whereas I think if you put Beal on a defensive team, he would at least be serviceable, at least an average defender. But the Nuggets just aren't that whatsoever. I do think that at the end of the day, their defensive woes, maybe that really wouldn't propel them to a championship. I think they would at least be a Western Conference Finals team again. But I don't really see them as a championship contender team at the end of the day. Even if they did acquire Bradley Beal, maybe I'm mistaken. The playoff Jamal Murray, Bradley Beal, and Jokic would be insane, though. So maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe they would be better than I'm giving credit for. Another team I just want to put on the side. Could you imagine if Luka Doncic got that secondary ball handler? Because I see a lot of times where if Luka Doncic is overwhelmed, and it's mainly because Kristaps hasn't been back health-wise. He needs to get back and his legs under him, so that's a main reason why. But could you imagine if let's say Luka's not having his best game, and he can then therefore rely on Bradley Beal instead of having to basically run the offense every single possession, I think that would be very helpful. And I think potentially maybe a Tim Hardaway, obviously a bunch of picks, something centered around that. I know a bunch more players should obviously be added in at that point. I'm not saying just Tim Hardaway. I'm just trying to think fantasy wise, like just imagine if Bradley Beal was paired with Luka and Kristaps, I think that would automatically make them a contender. Because Luka and I think Porzingis, if he doesn't get injured, I think they beat the Clippers, or at least get suspended, I should say as well. So yeah, those are my 3 to 4 teams that I wanted to talk about if he were to get traded. So I'm going to end this kind of talk with this. Bradley Beal, at the end of the day, if you were to ask the Wizards for a trade request, I don't think anyone would really be upset over that. I think, honestly, at the end of the day, you should, but at the same time, that's kind of respect that you're willing to stick to the Wizards, even how atrocious they have been through these past couple of years. We are clearly wasting Bradley Beal's potential, whereas a team like the Clippers, the Bucks, or someone like that could clearly use his services and basically use him to his true potential. But if Bradley Beal does not make the All-Star team, I think it shows he's leading the league in scoring, and I don't care that his team is like one of the worst in the league. It should still be mentioned that he is an All-Star. I don't know how he did not make the All-Star team last year, but enough with that. That will conclude the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss anything. Tune in for the live stream on Saturday with me and Brendan just talking NBA. And yeah, I'll catch y'all later.